All right. Well, today I'm here. This is Mike Heroux with Pat Quillen, who's that works at MathWorks, and you may not know the company, and but you certainly know the product, MATLAB and Simulink, and a variety of other capabilities that MathWorks provides to the technical computing community. And we're very fortunate to have Pat with us today to talk about some of his knowledge and experience with developer productivity. Before we get into questions, Pat, would you mind just saying a little bit about yourself and your role at MathWorks?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, it's a privilege having you.
Yeah, I'm at MathWorks now. It's 15 years. It'll be 15 years in September. And right now I am the manager of the MATLAB math group, as well as the PDE toolbox. So we take care of all the math in MATLAB. So that's like the core linear algebra and stuff like that. I've been in that role for almost 8 years.
Very good. Yeah. Well, we appreciate your efforts. Many people benefit from the tools that you provide.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So if anybody's been watching other videos we're making, we have these 4 sub-themes for the workshop: definitions, practical definitions of developer productivity, challenges, and then technical and cultural approaches or strategies for improving productivity. And so, Pat, I'm curious from you, what's a reasonable practical definition of developer productivity that you use to reason about improvements and maybe setbacks that you have in the work that you and your team do over time?
Yeah, sure. I think really very simply, productivity is about how quickly or how efficiently an individual can add value to a code base. I think it's really just that simple. For us, we worry a lot about quality of our software, and I've found that that software quality measures help inform productivity, actually.
Yeah, that's very good. I loved how you used the phrase "add value," not add lines of code, but add value.
Well, that's right. In fact, we've added a lot of value in our time at MathWorks by deleting lines of code.
So. Very good. Great statement. Yeah, excellent. All right, good. So given your view of the scientific software world, what are some of the challenges that we face as a community, or even locally, as you would care to say, in your own local sphere?
So for us, I think the biggest challenge is continuing to manage all of what's come before while continuing to add value. Because what can happen, as I'm sure everyone knows, is that in a mad dash to add feature X, you do things that maybe you would prefer you hadn't. And so when you have a long-lived piece of software, you see all of these things that people have done that perhaps they wish they hadn't, or maybe they weren't aware would be a problem in a decade. So one of the big problems or challenges, I think, is just trying to be cognizant of that complexity, really ideally as you're adding it, and think about how to manage it.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great answer. So what are some of the technical strategies, maybe even addressing the challenge, the specific challenge you just described? What are some of the technical strategies you see that as most promising?
Well, so I mean, one thing we do for certain is we will commit time to refactoring existing code and try to banish the technical debt. That's really, I think, more of a cultural thing, right? Because your culture has to leave room for that to be a valuable activity. But if you have a commitment to backwards compatibility, as MathWorks does, if you have a commitment to driving out bugs and making high quality software, as we do, I mean, really you have to do these things. And what you'll find is that as you get your code in shape, right, as you try to be more modular, be more flexible with your code, productivity actually ends up following, right? So if you can drive the defects out, if you can put tests in place to kind of make sure they stay out, then it makes it easier to build the culture of productivity.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. So in a way, the technical and the cultural are blended together, as in what you just described. Or that's what it sounds like to me. To me, yeah,
I mean, I think so. I think so.
yeah,
You have to kind of be committed. So my viewpoint, I think, is really just that if you're committed to quality, productivity will follow.
that's a great statement. Yeah, I really like that. You mentioned about testing to help you in refactoring. So it reminds me of a book by Michael Feathers, Working Effectively with Legacy Code. Are you familiar with that title?
Yes, I
Or
am familiar with that title. Yep.
yeah, would you describe some of the things you do as similar to that? As I recall, the basic pattern or workflow is you'll cover something in tests. And refactor, always testing against that. Does that sound similar to some of the things that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's our ideal workflow. All right. I mean,
Okay.
that ideal is not always realized because we're
Sure.
imperfect people, but
Yep.
that is definitely a thing we strive for. One thing we look for 100% conditioned and decision coverage, right? So code coverage is a tool that has helped us a lot. Of course, code coverage isn't everything, right? Plenty of
Yep.
that doesn't
Yep.
really guarantee anything. It doesn't guarantee 100% of workflows are tested.
Yep.
But yeah, relying on your test bed is a pretty important thing. For some folks, test-driven development has been a thing they rely on. For me, I think that personally, when I'm developing, that's a little too, it feels too constraining. It's not a
Hmm.
thing that I've adhered to, but I get the point and I kind of like the point.
Yeah.
One of the possible troubles I see with it, of course, is that if you adhere to it very rigorously, I think it's one of those things where you miss the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but that's
Yep.
an opinion. I haven't really practiced it enough to be uh, in love or out of love with it.
Yeah. All right. Very good. And so let's say 2 or 3 years from now, how would you like things to be better or different in your own situation with regards to the productivity of your team?
So I guess one thing that I don't like is it feels like sometimes we have just fires, right? Something shows up that we just didn't expect, whether that's
Yeah.
externally from the market, right? There's some new technology that really surprised us. Um, there's some real bad bug that snuck into the product somehow. Those kinds of emergencies, I don't like those emergencies. And so,
Sure.
you know, I don't know that we can completely quash them, but I mean, very frequently I found myself in the situation where, we have some emergency and I can show up and poke the right one line of code or two lines of code and the problem evaporates. And so while I don't like the emergency, I like that we're in a position to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So ideally, all of our code base is modular and flexible like this. The emergencies don't show up. We have enough foresight to prepare for the kinds of things that are going to be commodities in the next 3 to 5 years. Um, See, MathWorks, I run on machines like laptops and desktops. I'm not trying to program Summit or any kind of
Right.
crazy HPC machine. So my software really is running on very standard machines with a lot of
Yeah.
tried and true tools.
Yep.
So I don't have in that aspect, I don't have a hard job, right? So it's
Yeah.
like,
Sure.
if
Sure.
I can make my software modular enough to kind of tolerate all the different kinds of platforms that are going to be commodity, I'm doing okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very good. Well, having to deal with Summit and the like, I have to admit I'm a little bit jealous of your situation.
Yeah.
But that goes with the job for me, and having to deal with all of these
Yep.
real challenges. So very good. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. Some very nice points that you made, and I'm sure our viewers will enjoy seeing and hearing. And look forward to your participation in the workshop next week.
Great. Thanks, Mike. I can't wait. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much.